Not all movies are about story. Some are about spectacle. The kind of films that don't just show you something, but pull you in. Colors that burn, landscapes that stretch forever, shots so carefully composed they feel like paintings in motion. Some directors turn the screen into a canvas, crafting entire worlds that bypass words and go straight to feeling. Let's dive into 10 of the most visually stunning films ever made. Movies that prove that sometimes a single image can say more than 1,000 words. Wes Anderson doesn't just make movies, he constructs them, piece by piece, like a perfectly symmetrical diorama. The Grand Budapest Hotel isn't just visually stunning, it's an art piece, wrapped in pastel pinks, deep purples, and the faded grandeur of a world that feels both mythical and melancholy. Every frame is meticulously arranged, perfectly centered, symmetrically composed, a style so precise it almost feels like a moving painting. But beneath the aesthetic, a story about time slipping away, about elegance and absurdity coexisting in the same breath. The film's color palette shifts depending on the time period, warm and storybook-like in the 1930s, washed out and distant in the later years, mirroring how memory fades but never disappears. And then there's the miniatures. The hotel itself? Not CGI, but a handmade model, crafted with detail so rich it feels more real than reality. Even the aspect ratio changes: 1920s newsreels, old school Academy format, widescreen, each switch subtly placing you inside the era, making time feel like it's collapsing in on itself. But it's not just beautiful, it's playful. A world of sliding doors, meticulously timed chases, deadpan humor, and a concierge who believes in poetry over power. Anderson builds a universe. One where nostalgia isn't just longing for the past, it's a reminder of how quickly things vanish. Amélie isn't just a film, it's an invitation to see the world through curious eyes. Jean-Pierre Jeunet doesn't just tell a story, he paints it, with warm reds, deep greens, and golden hues that glow like a memory you never had but somehow long for. The Paris of Amélie isn't the one you find on postcards, it's a storybook version, where even the smallest moments spark with magic. A skipped stone, a hidden note, the flicker of a cafe light. Every frame is meticulously crafted, turning the everyday into something almost mythical. Visually, it's a world in motion, swooping shots, playful zooms, jump cuts that make even a simple glance feel like an event. The cinematography leans into whimsy, but never feels artificial. This is a film where reality softens, just enough to remind you that wonder can still exist. And then there's the details. The way Amélie dips her hand into a sack of lentils just for the texture. The way Jeunet uses rapid montages to distill a life into a few perfect images. The film doesn't rush, it lingers, savoring every quirk, every imperfection. It isn't just about visuals, it's about perspective. It teaches you to find joy in the overlooked, in the fleeting, in the tiny rebellions of daily life. It's not a love letter to Paris, it's a love letter to seeing. Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love is defined by its precision, every frame, color, and movement carefully constructed to evoke restraint and longing. Cinematographer Christopher Doyle's compositions make use of confined spaces, narrow hallways, doorways, reflections, reinforcing the character's emotional and physical limitations. The film's pacing is deliberate, favoring repetition over exposition. Scenes unfold with subtle variations. Glances exchanged, brief conversations, encounters in dimly lit corridors, building a rhythm that mirrors the character's growing but unspoken connection. The visual palette leans heavily on deep reds, golds, and muted greens, creating a nostalgic yet distant atmosphere. Cheongsams with intricate patterns, warm neon glows, and carefully curated set designs place the film firmly in 1960s Hong Kong, while simultaneously crafting a timeless aesthetic. Music plays a central role, with recurring motifs, particularly Shigeru Umebayashi's Yumeji's theme, heightening the sense of longing and repetition. Nat King Cole's Spanish-language ballads add another layer, reinforcing the film's themes of memory and unattainable desire. Unlike traditional romances, In the Mood for Love is less about what happens and more about what doesn't. The absence of resolution, combined with its striking use of cinematography, color, and sound, solidifies its place as one of the most visually and emotionally distinctive films in modern cinema. What Dreams May Come is one of the most visually ambitious films of its time, a story where entire landscapes feel like paintings, shifting, melting, and reacting to the emotions of its characters. Director Vincent Ward transforms the afterlife into a dreamlike canvas, where heaven is shaped by memory and hell by despair. Robin Williams' Chris Nielsen doesn't just see the afterlife, he walks through it. His heaven is a literal painting, its brushstrokes forming around him, dripping with vibrant blues, oranges, and deep greens. The visual effects, inspired by real oil paintings, create a world that looks impressionistic, every frame a work of art. Contrast that with hell, jagged, colorless, and fractured. It's not just fire and brimstone, but a reflection of grief and isolation. The way these landscapes change based on emotion makes the film's visuals feel alive, personal, rather than just fantastical. The cinematography and special effects won an Academy Award, and for good reason. Few films before or since have attempted to visualize the afterlife with this level of detail and intimacy. Instead of a distant, untouchable realm, What Dreams May Come creates an afterlife that feels close, like something you could step into, if only for a moment. The film isn't just stunning, it's deeply immersive. Every frame serves the story, reflecting love, loss, and the idea that even in death, the worlds we create for ourselves still matter. The Fall isn't just a film, it's a canvas painted with the most striking landscapes on Earth. Tarsem Singh's vision unfolds across 28 countries, with no CGI, just real locations that feel too beautiful to be real. Vast deserts, towering temples, hidden palaces, they aren't sets, they exist. At its core, this is a story of storytelling itself. A bedridden stuntman spins a grand adventure for a young girl, but fantasy and reality start to collide. His words shape the world she sees. Colors shift, architecture bends, and dreams turn darker. The more he loses hope, the more the story unravels. Every frame is meticulously composed, borrowing from classical paintings, surrealism, and opera. Costumes burst with intricate detail, making each character feel like they've stepped out of a living myth. The cinematography? It's pure artistry, wide, sweeping shots that let you drink in every location. Like a traveler stepping into another world. Lee Pace, as the broken stuntman, carries the film's emotional weight, while young Katinka Untaru brings raw, unscripted honesty. Her dialogue was often improvised, capturing the natural curiosity of a child experiencing the story in real time. The Fall is a film about storytelling, but also about power, who gets to tell the tale, and how it changes depending on who's listening. It's breathtaking, tragic, and utterly unlike anything else. This is cinema at its most ambitious, a world so grand yet so intimate you feel it. Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, isn't just a biopic, it's a cinematic collage, deconstructing the life and mind of Yukio Mishima through a triptych of styles. Paul Schrader doesn't just tell his story, he dissolves the boundaries between reality, memory, and fiction, creating something bold and unforgettable. Each chapter has its own visual identity, harsh black and white for his youth, rich naturalism for his final day, and surreal stage-like sets for his novels brought to life. The colors? Striking. Gold, crimson, deep violet, each hue a deliberate reflection of Mishima's obsessions with beauty, honor, and death. Then there's Philip Glass's score, a relentless, hypnotic rhythm that doesn't just accompany the story, it drives it. The music surges like a heartbeat, pulsing through Mishima's contradictions, the artist and the warrior, the idealist and the extremist. Ken Ogata delivers a performance that is both controlled and ferocious, capturing a man who saw life itself as an unfinished work of art. His physicality, his gaze, they speak volumes even in silence. Schrader doesn't present answers. He presents conflict. What happens when a man tries to live by a philosophy so rigid that it consumes him? Mishima is a rare film, one that feels like stepping into the mind of its subject. In Stalker, Andrei Tarkovsky doesn't just create a film, he crafts a dream. Slow, hypnotic, and heavy with meaning. Every frame is thick with atmosphere, every sound, water dripping, wind rustling, feels like a whisper from another world. Shot in washed-out sepia before shifting into deep, almost liquid color, the film doesn't just show a journey, it feels like one. The shift is a threshold, the moment we cross into the zone, a place where the laws of physics and possibly reality bend. The camera lingers, almost as if afraid to move too fast, capturing landscapes that feel both desolate and sacred. Rusted ruins, endless puddles reflecting the sky, wild overgrowth consuming civilization, every image tells a story. Tarkovsky's signature long takes don't just extend time, they stretch it until it feels endless. The stalker himself? A guide through this eerie, forbidden land. His clients, the writer and the professor, seek the mythical room where one's deepest desires are granted. Do they even know what they truly desire? Philip Glass once said, "Music is a place." Tarkovsky's Stalker proves that cinema can be too. It's not just a movie, it's an experience, a descent into the unknown, where every step feels like a question with no easy answer. If you're loving this deep dive into visually stunning cinema, why not stick around for more? Subscribe to Vintage Verse, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a film that deserves to be seen. There's a whole world of hidden gems and cinematic masterpieces waiting. Let's explore it together. In Days of Heaven, Terrence Malick doesn't just tell a story. He paints it. Light, shadow, and movement blending into something closer to memory than film. Every frame feels like a photograph pulled from the past, bathed in the soft gold of the setting sun. Shot almost entirely during the golden hour, that fleeting moment when the sky burns amber and everything glows. The film turns the Texas plains into a dreamscape. Fields ripple like waves, wind bends the grass in slow motion, and the light dances across the characters' faces as if time itself is slipping away. The story? Simple on the surface. A love triangle, deception, and fate creeping in like a storm on the horizon. But Malick isn't interested in conventional storytelling. The land, the sky, the silences between them, those tell the real story. Then there's the voiceover, spoken by Linda Manns with a mix of innocence and world-weariness that makes everything feel both intimate and mythic. It's not exposition. It's the sound of someone looking back, trying to make sense of a past that feels half-remembered. Days of Heaven won an Oscar for its cinematography, and for good reason. It's a film of light, where every frame looks like it was touched by something greater than the camera. Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon is a film where every frame could hang in a museum. Shot using NASA-developed lenses, capable of capturing scenes lit only by candlelight, Kubrick didn't recreate the 18th century, he resurrected it. The result? A film that feels like stepping into a painting, a world where light flickers, shadows breathe, and history looks lived in rather than staged. The film's compositions borrow directly from masters like Gainsborough and Watteau, with meticulous framing that turns landscapes into living tapestries. The use of natural light and long, measured tracking shots give each scene a sense of grandeur, yet inevitability, a visual reflection of the film's themes of fate and ambition. Kubrick's control extends beyond the visuals. The score, haunting Baroque pieces by Handel and Schubert, guides the film like a ghostly hand. The narration, detached and clinical, turns Barry's rise and fall into something almost preordained, a life dictated by circumstance, not free will. At its heart, Barry Lyndon isn't about duels or fortunes. It's about the slow, methodical march of time. It strips away the romanticism of period dramas, revealing a world where beauty and cruelty walk hand in hand. More than a film, it's an experience, one where every detail, from the flicker of a candle to the rustle of silk, feels like history breathing. The Seventh Seal is more than a film. It's a confrontation with the inevitable, framed in stark black and white, where every shadow feels like a whisper from the abyss. Ingmar Bergman didn't just direct, he composed. Each frame, meticulously arranged, turns medieval Europe into something both tangible and surreal. A world where the plague is as merciless as the silence of God. The contrast between light and darkness isn't just visual, it's existential. That iconic chess match? More than a game. It's a symbol, of resistance, of defiance, of a desperate attempt to make sense of what can't be understood. And Max von Sydow's Night, a man torn between faith and doubt, his expressions speaking louder than words. Bergman's use of symbols, a procession of flagellants, a burning at the stake, a jester laughing in the face of doom, turns the film into something timeless. Its history and philosophy, beauty and terror, all wrapped into images so powerful they've defined cinema itself. This isn't just a story about death, it's about what we do while waiting for it. And even now, decades later, death still plays chess. Cinema isn't just about stories, it's about images that stay with you. The kind of films that don't just tell but show. Every color, every frame, every movement carefully designed to pull you deeper into another world. Which visually stunning movie left you in awe? One that stuck with you long after the credits rolled? Let's talk in the comments. And if you love films that push boundaries, that look and feel like nothing else, make sure to subscribe to Vintage Verse. There's a whole universe of cinematic beauty waiting to be explored.